Kia ora and welcome to another software tutorial from Sharp Kinane Limited. My name's David Kinane. In this tutorial you're going to be finding out how to use the line tool to construct complex shapes. Then we'll be using the extrude tool again, and then you're going to learn how to use the fillet tool, the alignment tool, and finally the mirror tool. There's lots to learn, so let's get right into it. Now that we've actually created a simple model, let's have a look at how we can actually do something that's way more complicated. So let's first of all just look at how we can adapt this model using some of the other tools. So I've made this very simple cuboid object, and now I want to adapt it, and this is where we can start doing different things with the different tools. So I'm going to come across to the draw function again, click on the draw function, and I can now choose a plane, or I can choose a face on my object that I wish to draw on. So let's, for example, say I wish to draw on the top face of this object. I'm going to click on that and it switches to the top view for me, and now obviously the tools have come visible again. So I want to add a circle. So I'm just going to click on here on the face. I'm just clicking anywhere, any size, and just like before, the dimension is highlighted in green, and I can change that. So let's make that into a 9mm circle diameter. I enter that, but I want to center it, and so we need to remember the dimensions of our face, the initial two-dimensional rectangle when we created it. So let's remind ourselves, let's finish the sketch. So I've forgotten the dimensions, we can check that. So I'm going to finish the sketch, and this is when the timeline becomes useful to us. I'm going to come down to the timeline, I'm going to right click on the timeline, I'm going to edit the sketch, and I'm only using the edit to remind me of the dimensions. So it's 15, 20 and 15. So that's reminded myself. So let's orient that circle to the center of that rectangle. Click finish sketch. I'm going to come back to here. I want to edit this sketch now, the circle, and all these tools come active again. And I want to move this, and I can drag it around, but I want to do this accurately. So I'm now going to use this sketch dimension tool, and this is really accurate. This is a really good tool to get a handle on. So I'm going to click on this tool, and I want to make sure that I'm aligning the center point with one of the edges of the rectangle. I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to drag down, and currently it says that the dimension, or the center of the circle is 13.75 etc. millimeters away from that right hand edge. Now we know that this length here is 20 millimeters. So if I want it in the center, it's got to be 10. So I'm just going to type in 10. And enter, and now my circle is in the center of the length of the long side of the rectangle, but I now want to center it with the short side. So again, we do the same process again. I'm going to click on this tool, click on the center, click on this side here, and you can see that it is currently 4.6 millimeters from the top of that circle, and that's a 15 millimeter high side to that. So I'm now going to type in 7.5, and I've now exactly centered my circle in that plane. I can now finish my sketch, and I can now extrude that. So let's type in E, and I have to now, if we look over here, it's time to look at the options on this chart here. I have to now select, you can step your way through this. I'm going to step through which face I want to extrude. I'm going to highlight the circle. You can see how the change in grey tone. Click on that, and then the option again to set the exact dimension appears in the green. You can just click and drag if you wish to with the arrow, and you can go back down underneath if you wish to. Notice how it goes to minus. I tend to use the number tool here. I find it easier. So let's say if I wanted to make that 10 millimeters, I just type in 10, click enter. So now let's have a look at some of the modify features, and the first thing we're going to look at is the fillet function. And that fillet function, especially if you're using a 3D printer, is a good tool to use to help give strength to your 3D printed models. Filleting just rounds off junctions. So if you imagine a junction between this cylinder and this rectangle, if we filleted that, it would make a much stronger bond. So let's press the F key, and I'm going to select on any of the edges I wish to fillet. So I can select multiple, but in this first instance I'm just going to select the junction between the cylinder and the plane of the rectangle. Click on that, and again you can use the arrow, or you can set the radius that you wish to. I'm going to make this 2mm and return, and I've now set that feature. And again, if you look down on the timeline, we've gone drawing, extrusion, fillet. So we can also fillet these edges here to make the rectangle less hard edged. So I'm going to press F again, and I want you to look at this particular feature. Let's see if I can just orient this to make this a little bit more visible. So we know that there's a vertices at the back here, and there's we can see these three. If we press the F key, fillet, first, I can now select and continue selecting. Notice how it highlights the hidden edges. So I'm going to click on this one here, I'm going to click on this one here, and if I go over the back here, I can click on this one. So I've now selected all 4 points on that rectangle without having to orient my model around to do this. Let's have a look. Let's make this a 5mm fillet. So I'm just click on this dialog box up here, 5 and dot. There we go. And I've now click OK, and I've now made this fillet here, this rounded fillet. And again, if you think those fillets are way too strong, but maybe this 2mm one here is way too strong, I can come back to this, I can edit the feature, and rather than making it 2mm, I can experiment with this. Let's make it 1. That's probably looking a bit nicer. But notice how, because I've gone back in the timeline, the next thing that needs to happen is ghosted, because it hasn't happened yet. We're back before we did that, so my edges have disappeared, but don't panic. As soon as I press OK, the timeline will catch up with where it's at, and that's looking a bit better. And again, I can change these. This 5mm might be a bit strong, so I'm going to right click on that, edit the feature, and let's make that 3mm. That looks a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So it's quite easy for you to use the extrude function with the E shortcut key, the fillet function with the F, and so we're going to now look at how we can use the line tool to make more complicated subjects, and then we'll get on to the hollow function and the mirror function in a moment. I've deleted that previous model, and I'm now going to make something a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to click up back on the draw function, going to choose my plane, and we swing around like that. And now I'm going to use the line tool, and I'm going to start at the origin because I want to end up mirroring what I'm going to do. So let's just click on here and see how this works. I'm going to start at the origin, and it's a bit like using the tool to change the dimensions. When you start stretching out your lines here, Fusion360 tells you if you're off of the perpendicular, so you can see the angles are changing. Again, I've got here a length, so if I want to be a type of specific length in, let's just do some right angle turns and corners before we start getting any angles. So let's say I wanted to make something here, let's make it 30 millimeters long, and then I want to, so I'm going to click with my mouse, and but I haven't entered anything like this. I'm now just moving along. Let's say I want to make this 15 millimeters, and it's still at 90 degrees, and I'm going to click with my mouse to set that dimension. Let's come down to here, let's come down 20, and I'm going to come across, let's say this is going to be, what do I do, 15 again. click and come back up to here. It's going to snap to those objects now. So I'm just working my way through this, going across this way. Let's do 15 again. I'm just typing, click, and down to here, click, because it's snapping to line. And let's do 15 again. And finally, let's come back up to here. I know I have to close this shape, so I'm going to click, come across to here, 15 again. Now this time I'm going to come down below the axis here, and I want to come down 60. And I'm now going to start making something that looks a little bit more angular. And so if I wanted to, I can now start organizing this angle of turn here. So I want to come in 20 millimeters, but I want to change the angle from 51.4 degrees, as you can see there, to 60. So I click on the tab function, I can type in 60 degrees, and now I can click. Let's do that again. I want to come back down this way, and I want to be on the same plane. So I'm going to come down 20 this time, but I want my angle to be 60 degrees. So it's tab this, and it's going to be 120. And let's just come across here. So it's quite easy. Let's do that again. Let's do 20, and then let's do tab again to 60 degrees. Tabbed in place. Let's do it one more time. Come down here. Let's do 20 and 60 again. So tab to come to the angle. So it's 120. Tab, and I'm finally going to come back up and join to the origin. So I've made this really complicated shape with all the angles and turns in them, and all these dimensions are now editable. We can go back into these later. I'm going to finish my sketch. Let's do this. There's my sketch. I'm going to extrude, so E, and I'm going to extrude, let's think, it's just extrude 15 millimeters. So I'm not even sure what I've made here, but let's look at this. So here's a complicated object. Now, if this is a complicated object and I wanted to make this, it had to be bigger than this. It's some kind of tool you're making. What we want to do is we might want to mirror this. So what I want to do now is I want to mirror, and that's under Create down here. We're going to click on the mirror function, and this pop-up box comes across here. What are we trying to mirror? We're going to select the object we want to mirror, and then we have to select the plane. Now, because I built mine around the origin, I want to click on the plane. So click on here. I can either select around the plane, but I want to select the face and click OK. And I've now mirrored my object. If I undo that, and let's see, we wanted to do some functions on here. So let's say this is half of my object. Let's say, for example, I wanted to now click on here and I wanted to add something. Let's drill a hole through here. We've got a couple of holes that we want to drill. So we're going to, I'm just going to do this quickly. Let's make a 9mm hole, and let's finish that sketch. Let's drill a hole through that. So I'm now going to E, extrude. And if you know the dimension of something, you can just drill through. So we know that was 15 millimeters, I think. So I want to make that a minus 15. It's all the way through. Let's just check on that. Yeah, it's gone all the way through. For example, let's now press on fillet. We want to fillet that particular hole, and let's fillet it for 1 millimeter. So all of these functions I'm adding onto here. Let's just, for good measure, let's do some more filleting. So I'm going to fillet these edges here. I'm going to fillet those for 3 millimeters. So I've now got all these features edited on here, filleted. And so if I can now come back to mirror, if I click on mirror again, do the same function, select the body, and we want to select the mirror plane. I'm going to select on that plane there and click OK. All of the features that I modified on the first half are transferred automatically across to the second half. And so that mirror feature is really good. It allows you to make half of a complex object and allows you to then mirror it around a particular plane. If we wanted to mirror this whole object again, I can now select this. It's a whole object. Let's go back to here and click on mirror, and I want to select this whole body. I want to select a mirror plane. I'm going to select that one and click OK, and now this really complicated model has been made up from a simple quarter of the model. And you can see how you could make a much more complex model by only doing one portion of it and then using the mirror function to make your task much easier and less prone to mistakes. Thank you for watching this Sharp Canane tutorial. Until the next one, ka kite anō.